Hey guys, it is Monday, January 29th, 2018, and you know what that means. It is Q&A time. So, let me, okay, let me pull up some questions here. Today's topic was cardio, all things cardio, um, anything related to cardio. And I got some really good questions. I wasn't sure how many questions this kind of topic would generate necessarily, but there are several very good ones. So, all right. And don't mind my dog in the background. I'm not sure what he's doing. Okay, so how do you feel about jump rope between working sets during a program? I personally wouldn't do it. I don't see can't think of a lot of instances where that would really be applicable, simply because it's going to take away from recovery between sets. I mean, when I'm looking at recovering from a set, I want maximal output in the following set as well. So that's really my goal with rest. That's why I don't want to rush the rest period. I want to make sure that I'm not really doing anything in between the rest period other than, I walk around or something along those lines, but nothing really strenuous. So with that said, I can't really think of a lot of instances where I would actually do that. Not to someone that wants to train for physique enhancement. Now, if I'm having someone do some kind of circuit training where it's just basically for EPOC effect, it's basically like HIIT cardio but with exercises, then yeah, I might do something like that, but not really in between like primary working sets. I couldn't imagine jump roping in between squats or deadlifts or even any kind of pressing or just anything. I pretty much just want to just sit there and try to collect myself between sets. So, okay. How do you feel about straight LISS cardio for fat burning? So LISS cardio being low intensity steady state. HIIT just tanks me hard and affects my recovery all week. Also, how do you feel about alternating lift days with LISS days for muscle retention? I'd love your opinion. And it's probably the individual, but I really feel better than I have in forever from a recovering standpoint. However, I am not in a gaining phase and I'm in a fat loss phase. Hope this is clear. Thank you. Okay, so this is a really good question because there's always an argument about which cardio you're going to get more bang from your buck from. And I think that the problem with that question is, people say, well, HIIT has this benefit and low intensity steady state has this benefit, or whatever. The problem really lies in the fact that you have to take into consideration that you're probably, especially if it's a prep situation, there's so many other outside stressors that you really need to make sure that you're recovering, that it's not really negatively impacting your training badly. So for me, I do like HIIT. I have people do HIIT for sure. But in this case, like she's mentioning, there does come times in prep where things are pushed so hard, or at a fat loss phase where things are pushed so hard that HIIT's just not really practical to recover from. It's cutting into recovery badly, and it is taking away from training sessions, which are really where the primary source of muscle retention is. So in that case, yeah, I would definitely think that low intensity steady state is fine to do. I've actually done that in several of my preps. HIIT was cut out completely, and it was all steady state at the end, just because that's literally the only thing I could recover from. And frankly, I feel like if you can't generate enough intensity during the HIIT sessions anyhow, it's not really super effective. It's harder to get your heart rate up. You really don't have the kind of juice to do it. But another thing to mention there is the type of HIIT you're doing. Now, if someone's doing all, let's say like spin bike or stationary bike type of HIIT, they might just experience recovery between their actual workouts is okay, but maybe it's just their lower body's not recovering very well. It's not really affecting anything else. In that case, you can definitely alternate in other types of HIIT. Use battle ropes, circuits, all kinds of stuff that you can implement in there that will basically do the same thing, and you don't just have to do it on the bike. So that's a couple things to think about there, but for sure, if it's really the best type of cardio is really going to come down to what's sustainable, what you can recover from, and what is going to allow you to keep training optimally while still losing fat. Okay, so thoughts on fasted early morning sprints. True fast, no pre-workout or aminos, fine, or doing more harm than good, etc. Suggestions. No, I'm not in a fat burning phase, really. So, okay, so follow-up question there was, I asked if it was just more of a convenience thing, and she says yes. So in that case, I don't see anything directly wrong with it necessarily. I do have people that will do fasted HIIT cardio, but there's usually a reason for it. Like I'll use like a stubborn fat protocol where we're doing fasted sprints followed by steady state cardio, mobilize free fatty acids, burn free fatty acids, and what have you. But this is what I'll say. If you are doing it, if there's a reason that you're doing it, it's something to do with your performance, you're trying to increase sprint performance, you're trying to maybe increase anaerobic performance, maybe potentially, then yeah, I think it's okay to separate from your training, because then you can put maximal intensity into both training and cardio. So I think that there's merit in that. And then also she asks if there is time instead post lift, then sometimes I'll do jump rope or sprints or something battle ropes, and I never lift fasted. So yeah, like I mentioned in the previous questions, there are alternate types of HIIT. So if you're worried about doing like lower body HIIT after you've done a squat session, then for sure, just use the battle ropes, do some kind of the circuits, whatever you have to do that's not lower body dominant. So I hope that answered the question. I do use HIIT fasted. It's not really like my preference, unless it's just simply absolutely have to do it because of schedule, or I'm using like the stubborn fat protocol like I mentioned. Okay. Why does cardio suck? Side note, why did God make donuts so tasty and yet horrible for you? And then that got about 20 replies, maybe not 20, but 10. They posted food pictures back and forth to each other. God, it's ridiculous. Okay. This client does food challenges and stuff and eating contests, so I'm not surprised by the question. But anyhow, why does cardio suck? I don't know. But I do have some people that like it, or they claim that they like it, and I'm not really sure exactly how that works, to be honest. I could see maybe liking steady state cardio, other than it's boring, might make you feel better, but I can't see anyone doing HIIT cardio correctly that thoroughly enjoys it, even if you are a glutton for punishment. What's your thoughts on a rowing machine for cardio? I think it's perfectly fine. That would be another option too for HIIT. Like I said, for doing intervals, rower is great. I was doing those in my last prep post-workout on my lower body days. And actually, I think I ended up doing it every day was rower, just because my legs were just trashed from steady state and then obviously training. So yeah, I think it's fine. It doesn't have to be HIIT, obviously. You could do any pace with that, but for sure, I don't see anything wrong with it. How important would you rate it as a tool for health? Okay, how rate cardio as a tool for health? So there's some conflicting, ideas about this. Some people claim that it has zero health benefit. I think for some people that are training, it probably doesn't have a ton of health benefit, but I think but just seeing that it has, hey, hush. Seeing what it has done for people as far as in real life experience, I do think that it does serve some benefit, possibly lowering blood pressure. Now what it actually does for the heart long term, I'm not really sure, because training is going to be pretty demanding on the heart anyhow, as far as making it work and keeping the muscle strong. So I don't know. It's not, we'll put it this way, it's not like my first go-to for health necessarily. Unless obviously the person is completely sedentary, then there's a pretty big benefit to doing anything at that point. Supplements to use around low intensity, steady state, Yohimbine, Frag, Clen, etc. Also on the bike, how hard should you be going? I can gauge speed on the treadmill by heart rate, but even if I'm sweating on the bike, my heart rate doesn't increase a great deal. First, I'd probably ask how you're testing your heart rate. Are you relying on the heart rate monitor on the actual bike, or are you, checking your wrist or checking your pulse? Maybe make sure that the way you're checking it is accurate and consistent, and then go faster. Go faster to get the heart rate up. Now, the thing is about LISS is I feel like if you have at least a little bit of heart rate elevation, you're going to get some effect. It's really more about distance and caloric expenditure at that point. So, if my heart rate's, give me a number, 90, and on the bike, which isn't really that high, obviously, then it's 110 on the treadmill. I don't think it really makes any difference as long as caloric expenditure is matched. It would just probably take you a little bit longer on the bike to match that caloric expenditure. So that's the main thing. You're going to have to know, if you're not measuring caloric expenditure with any kind of tracking tool, which even then they're not super consistent, you can use the bike and the tracker on the bike. No, it's not consistent. It doesn't tell you exactly how many calories you burn, because it's just not going to be consistent measurement, especially because every person varies in size and etc. So what it does do is it will give you consistent readings. So I do that in my prep. I do pretty much all my cardio on the bike, all my steady state, pretty much. And I'll do my HIIT, it's differently, maybe on the bike, maybe on the rower. But anyhow, steady state, I know, all right, I'm doing this much time at this speed, or this much caloric or distance, I'm doing this much distance in the session. And then I'm consistent. That's the main thing, is just that you're being consistent. And then you can track it, because if you're varying distance and heart rate and caloric expenditure every session, then it's just not going to be trackable. That's kind of the bottom line. Now, as far as supplements, there's quite a few things that you can use pre. Any kind of secretagogue peptide, GHRPs, MOD-GRF. You could use Frag. Yes, they mentioned Frag. Frag could be used. It's pretty much the only time that Frag's really relatively useful is in a fasted state. If you're in a fasted state for a while, maybe you're doing a fast in the morning for part of the day, or you're doing cardio fasted. That's pretty much the only time I've seen it beneficial. And you have to use quite a bit, 400 or 500, 600 mcg type of thing. But some people will get benefit from that. Yohimbine, yeah, absolutely fasted. Definitely needs to be used fasted. Low insulin state, not in a fed state. You can work up to, I'll have most people try to work up to about 1 milligram per 10 pounds of lean body mass. And not everyone can get quite that high. Some people have some anxiety, different effects, but sometimes I'll put something to increase GABA levels in there. I use theanine a lot to help kind of offset that anxiety and kind of smooth those effects out. But it needs to be, we'll pair that with caffeine also. Caffeine's usually about 10 milligrams per, sorry, why am I blanking? Is usually, well, really caffeine's about 1 milligram per pound of lean body mass, give or take. That's where it should be at. So that's, yeah, good to use. Use the whole entire dose before fasted cardio. And you don't need to dose it again during the day. You could because there are low insulin states during the day that you could use it. It's just, it gets a little dicey on timing. Clen, well, I mean, that doesn't really matter. Super long active life, just, whenever. Really, doesn't make much difference. If it's going to be pretty much active all day. If it gives you problems sleeping, try not to do it at night. Hopefully most of it's cleared by nighttime, but it won't all be cleared. What else? I mentioned GHRP and MOD-GRF. Those creatine peptides, they will help. You can take them with a somatostatin inhibitor. Somatostatin will rise when you have that growth hormone pulse, so you can take them with like EGCG. That's EGCG is normally what I would recommend to most people. It's cheap. There's some other benefits to it. So off the top of my head, I mean, those are the main things that are going to mobilize fatty acids for burning. So any other fat burner that doesn't necessarily need to be taken on an empty stomach, I wouldn't really worry about it. Peptides, growth hormone, all those things that obviously be used at that time, though. Okay. I know I had a couple more. I got some extra questions today, but all right. Wait. All right. Hey, Austin, thoughts on 2 I use GH, 2 I use Humalog when with fasted cardio, then fasting for another 1 to 2 hours to maximize fat utilization. Okay, so the GH is going to be more useful in a fasted state, a low insulin state. So I mean, you could use both together, but it's definitely going to render the GH a lot less useful. So just take, it can just be taken on its own. Now, with that said, you got to understand that you're going to be more insulin sensitive at this time. You probably really shouldn't need to clear any blood sugar with the growth hormone, with insulin use. Yeah, the growth hormone is going to raise your blood sugar slightly. It's going to happen. But you should be waking up with a pretty good fasted blood sugar already if you're in a cutting phase, you're in a deficit, what have you. You're doing cardio, all those things. So you really shouldn't need the Humalog at that point. And like I said, you don't really want to take the two together at that time and interrupt the free fatty acid mobilization from the GH itself. Now, as far as staying fasted for another 1 or 2 hours, absolutely. So the GH itself will peak. It tends to peak with the mobilization around 2 hours, give or take. I'm sure that probably just it could depend on the person and how they metabolize it, but and it lasts for a while. So really, I mean, you could stay fasted for a few hours afterwards. That's no problem at all. And you would have some benefit. If you have things to do in the morning, if you're being active, getting stuff done, whatever, moving around, for sure, there's going to be benefit there. If your NEAT levels are high in the morning, then yeah, definitely. Okay. I think that answered that. And let's see. Why isn't there mouse-flavored cat food? I don't know. But I think you could market that for sure. This is almost better than why are pizza boxes squared set around? Yeah, those are good questions. I don't know. There probably is mouse-flavored cat food somewhere. I mean, there's meat-flavored, but not mouse. I don't know if they necessarily like the flavor of mice better than other animals, just the fact that they're common rodents that they catch. I don't know. But if you don't copyright that, I'm gonna take the idea. Okay. If you do your cardio Post-workout, because you worked out first thing in the morning but drank Gatorade and BCAAs intra-workout, is it still effective to do the cardio post-workout? Steady state. The answer is yes. Because it is going to have the same caloric expenditure either way as long as you're doing the same amount. It's really not super important to be fasted in this state because you're not using any of those fat loss components that I talked about previously because you had Gatorade and BCAAs when you trained. So yeah, it's still burning the calories. The calorie burn is going to be the same. You're just not really going to be able to use those other things that I mentioned above in that scenario. But yeah, there's definitely no problem doing it that way. And, a lot of people are already at the gym. They have the cardio equipment there, what have you. So perfectly fine. All right, that is all the questions for today. I will talk to you guys next week.